Hey everybody, and welcome to Electric Van Man. And here I am with none other than the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. Way back when in 1886, that's like a long time ago, Carl Benz invented the engine and put it in a vehicle, and off it went. The patent was done in 1885, and in 1888 his good lady wife went on a 180-kilometer road journey to prove that this was a vehicle that could really make a difference. In 1896 Carl Benz created the first truck, and shortly after the van was formed as well. I mean, you know, to be honest, it was a truck that could only carry 1,500 kilos, so therefore it was really a van anyway. Well, that's what I'm saying, and I'm sticking to it. So fast forward to 1995, and that is when the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter first kicked off. Only 6 years later, the first electric version of this was on the road in Germany, and I drove it 3 years later in 2004. So this has been a long time coming, but it's here now. So let's have a look at it. So this wouldn't be a Paul the Electric Van Man review without a bit of selfie stick. And so here I'm going to tell you about what we're going to look at as we go through this van. So we're going to look at whether it's practical or not and fit for a purpose for you. Because whether it's electric or not, I'd love you to buy it, but if it doesn't do a job for you, no point. We're also going to check about how far it'll go, because of course that's really important. And we're also going to look at the charging speeds and how long it will take you to fill that battery full of juice again. The other important bits are around the cabin space, and you know, what does it give you, what equipment's it got, does it come with the right cables. Also, we're going to think about when we can get one, because you know, electric vehicles are like 10 years lead time, right? Well, we'll have a look at that. And also finally, how much it's going to cost, or how much is it going to save you. There's a thought. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of want to know what's under there, because there isn't an engine, right? So what have they put under there? Let's have a look. So there it is. Some wires, lots of cables to the charging point, which we'll come on to in a second. There's connections for the battery, which you can't actually see where the battery is, but you can connect to it. So that's good news. There's some pipes here that mean air conditioning, but we'll touch on that in a bit. And then there's the water for your windscreen wipers, and obviously that's pretty important. But from a safety check point of view, and I know you all do your safety checks, that really is the only thing you need to check. Everything else, you can see the lines, and normally they will be kept up. So great news, nice and simple. So before we move away from the front of the van, let's check out the charge point, because Mercedes helpfully tuck it away at the front. So I mentioned safety checks a second ago. Mercedes handily put a step basically so that you can get up to the windscreen, because otherwise it's very difficult to get that windscreen clear on a cold morning. But more importantly, let's have a look at the charging port. So the charging on this vehicle is both AC and DC. So you can get your 7 kilowatts, which is overnight charging typically. Around 6 or 7 hours it will take you to fill this battery to full. At full, you'll get around 95 miles, 94, 95 miles. And you can also, with the addition of DC charging, you can get up to 80% from 20% in about 30 minutes. It's important to note that Mercedes-Benz have two types of DC charging. One is 20 kilowatts and one is 80 kilowatts. How do you tell the difference? I haven't got a clue, and nor have they. Well, they know because it's on the logbook and things, but you can't tell from looking at it. So I would always encourage you to go for that 80 kilowatt option, just because you've got the super fast charging as a backup when you're out on the road and getting low on charge. So that would be my advice. Get that it's a £500 option, I think, but I hear talk they might be making it standard in the near future. So Mercedes-Benz obviously supply a cable with which to charge. Very simple to charge a vehicle. You simply plug in that end in the vehicle and the other end in your wall box. When it comes time to get the vehicle unplugged, there is a button helpfully there. You press it, you will hear a little click, and that is the vehicle releasing the charging cable. So is this a van that can do a job for you in your business from a practicality point of view? Well, there is something really comforting about the Mercedes-Benz build quality, the solid floor. There's 8 lashing points that I can count. In fact, there's 10 lashing points, handles at both doors, and a polymer ply lining, which obviously lightweight, and looks like it's really easy to take in or out if you want to add some racking to it. So really good. Lights in all the right places, and a really good load height. So I think it's just over 2 meters, 2 meters and 29, I think. You've got 3 meters down the bottom, and obviously enough space between the wheel arches for your pallets. Now, when Mercedes-Benz created this van, they created it for the logistics market primarily. And apparently the logistics market don't mind a great big tyre in the back as well. It's one of a few compromises that you have to make to go electric. The other compromise is the weight of the vehicle. This is a heavier vehicle than you would expect, and you get 731 kilos of payload, which when you think about how much you can get in a diesel variant, it is a bit of a compromise. So if the spare wheel is compromise number 1, compromise number 2 is towing. Mercedes-Benz don't permit towing with the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter in the electric guise. Now, having spoken to them, it's because the reduction mainly in range that you would get by sticking another, up to 2 tons, let's face it. Most Mercedes-Benz Sprinters can tow 2 tons. So adding that kind of capacity to one of these vehicles would dramatically reduce the range to the point where it gets too unusable. So Mercedes are staying true to their colours and saying, actually, we've built this for a specific purpose. We're going to get it right in here, and then we'll move on to the next phase of our electric development. And for those of you that love a stat, all the stats will magically appear before your eyes. So Mercedes are targeted on the logistics market with this van. I mean, there are other uses and there are other people that will buy this van, like the public sector and small businesses, greengrocers, refrigeration, all kinds of different uses. But what Mercedes-Benz do really well is a side load door. They have years of practice. I remember back donkey's years ago when they did big deals with parcel companies, and they are still famous for doing deals with parcel companies. And parcel companies don't half know how to hammer a door. So when you look at the brackets, you immediately see that strength and depth that Mercedes have invested, because this is one of the biggest areas of weakness on a van if you're opening it hundreds of times a day. So they've done a really good job with this. For those eagle-eyed amongst you, you may have spotted a fuel filler cap. But there is no one home, which is good news, right? But I guess this must just be an homage to the old way of doing things. But it's a cost-saving measure at the end of the day. And, well, like I said, nothing to see here. Something very comforting about that solid thunk as the Mercedes-Benz door shuts. Mercedes-Benz have always built for safety, and the electric Sprinter is no exception to that. It has all the standard safety equipment on it that is working actively, so things like ESP and the crosswind assist and other bits and pieces that they've added to these vehicles to make them super safe when they're on the road. And of course you've got driver and passenger airbags as well, should the worst happen. But there's a couple of compromises here too, and the compromise number one is something that I used to love, which was the multifunction steering wheel. Now, according to Mercedes-Benz, the electric architecture of the vehicle as a whole doesn't support the use of things like cruise control. And again, Mercedes have been talking to their customers about the equipment and the specification levels on the vehicle, and cruise control, which is one of the things that comes on the multifunction steering wheel, was something that wasn't important. Bear in mind, this is again targeted at urban logistics. So actually they're not going far before they've got to stop again. So cruise control, not such a big issue. For me, I would have liked to have seen the radio controls on here. And also, we must never ever forget that all electric vehicles are automatic, and Mercedes gearbox or gear stick I should say goes up on here just behind the steering wheel and allows you to choose reverse or drive or park. Whilst we're here on the steering wheel, you've also got the paddles for the regeneration, so you can adjust it either way to increase or decrease the amount you brake when you lift your foot off the accelerator. Now, one thing you'll know about me is, if you've seen any of my other videos, is I do love a bum warmer, and there is heated seats in this vehicle which work well and very quick. Actually, they do get your bum very warm very quickly, which on a winter's day is really important, because of course we know that the heaters do draw a lot of the battery. The radio is another area of compromise. Although it does do everything, it's got the Bluetooth, it's got digital, DAB and all of that good stuff. You can connect your phone to it, and there is media plugs, and so you've got the source of getting everything in that you want to get in. But again, still feels that there's a little bit of a compromise. And again, that's down to the electric architecture. But where there is no compromise is, of course, the space that you get with cup holders and lovely areas here to store lots of paperwork, and then you've got the good overcab places to store folders and things like that, other pockets as well. So you've got ample storage, and the cable that we looked at earlier is stored under the front seat, where there's a nice couple of areas that you get. You could put wet gear in there, all kinds of stuff that you might want to keep safe and out of people's eye shot. Good news. But how is this vehicle on the road? Well, let's go and find out. So, what can be said that hasn't already been said about the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter and its driving? Well, I've just got to reiterate what everybody says, really, that it is a really lovely drive. It's solid, it performs well, it feels sturdy. The joy of electric driving comes through in completely. Of course, they're all automatic, so that's fantastic news. And as you're pulling away from a junction, it's smooth. You're not going to find yourself kind of in the wrong gear in the middle of a difficult spot with traffic coming at you from any particular direction. So you feel really confident, and I'm very confident that accidents will be reduced in this vehicle because people are finding it much easier to drive. I will say though that the lack of the multifunction steering wheel does make a difference. You've also got to reach for the radio a little bit. Cruise control doesn't really matter because this is designed for an urban environment. Why would you need cruise control in that environment? You wouldn't. But the other functionality around the use of the radio and the use of the phone, I would definitely rather have right here, so I can keep my eyes on the road and my hands on the wheel. But it's a small compromise, really, in the big wide world of electric vehicles. Credit to Daimler, Mercedes-Benz fans for getting this to market, getting it in the hands of some real people, and getting the feedback. They're very targeted. That's why there's only one model, L2H2. They're very clear on their target audience, the logistics market, and very local sort of operations. So get that going, give a great driving experience. All the equipment is here, air conditioning, all of that sort of stuff. A heated seat, yes, big thumbs up from me, especially in those cold days. You have to manually adjust the mirrors, but you should be doing that on your daily check anyway. So again, is there a compromise? Yeah, maybe there is, but it all seems really perfectly acceptable to me. So there you have it. Of course, as with all of these things, I won't have covered everything, and there are a couple of things that really stand out in my mind that I haven't covered, and that's that this vehicle comes standard with Mercedes-Benz Pro, which is all the telematics stuff, and also that Mercedes have a link up with Geotab, which will take data from your vehicles or this vehicle in real world scenarios and tell you whether or not your driving style, your business, your daily operation is suitable to go with an electric vehicle. They also provide an app which will enable you to know what's going on with the vehicle, and a dashboard that will tell you what the state of charge is, whether it's charging, and lots of other great information. So they really are building an infrastructure to make it possible to run this vehicle. As I've said, this is a Mercedes-Benz through and through. There are some compromises, you know, the spare wheel, the towing, the other bits and pieces like the payload, for instance, but they have been in full consultation with all of their customers. So making this specifically fit for purpose for the urban logistics environment, but maybe some other operations like yours. So have a think about it. Let me know what you think in the comments, whether this is a van fit for purpose, whether the compromises are too great, or you're not ready yet. There is another generation of Sprinter coming in 2023, which will really knock things up a notch. But until then, this is what we've got. So in the comments, like, subscribe, hit the bell thingy for more information just like this, and I'll see you next time.